This video is sponsored by Squarespace. You can make your own beautiful website or online store with this all-in-one platform. Hi everyone, I thought I would do an updated favorite art supplies video because it's been a couple years and I want to update you on everything that I use all the time, all of my go-to supplies. I'll link everything in the description and you'll be watching me fill a sketchbook page full of a bunch of dragon sketches, a bunch of colorful dragons, and the print of the month is also dragon related. I decided to make February all about dragons since it's the year of the dragon and I feel like I've just been seeing them everywhere and I love drawing them. I like drawing feathery dragons, sort of like bird, snake, serpent type of dragons. So I decided to fill an entire page in my sketchbook. I did a dragon sticker and a dragon print, which I really like, and I'm really excited to get those in the mail and see them in person. And if you want to grab them for yourself as well, you can head to my Patreon and pledge to your chosen tier before February ends. I know there's not a lot of warning, but if you want it, now's your chance. This video is going to be about my traditional art mainly, but for digital art, I use the iPad Pro 12.9-inch 3rd generation with Procreate, and I now use my own brushes for everything that will be available for purchase this year at some point. So my current favorite art supplies for 2024. The first one I want to talk about are the Neocolour Aquarelle Wax Pastels. They are a new favorite of last year. I discovered them last year because I saw some other people using them. I think I saw like Apple Cheeks using them or Studio Maggie or Lee Alexin. One of them I saw using this supply. And I was like, I've always been interested in the look of pastels, but I find oil pastels and like chalk pastels too messy. But these are not messy. These have the feeling of a pastel, but they don't create this like oily mess. They're more of a crayon than anything, but they're like a softer crayon. And the ones I have, you can actually add water to, but I rarely do that. And I really like them. They're so fun for like adding down a quick layer of texture and color. I've always loved the look of crayons, but you can't really layer them on top of each other. They're kind of like difficult to work with because they're just like Crayolas and not that good quality. But these sort of feel like an adult version of crayons and I love them. They're my favorite thing from last year. I bought so many colors. I have a lot of them. I just kept going to this local art store and getting more and more colors every time I was in town. And now I have a lot and I love them. So I'd highly recommend you try these out if you like the look of pastels, but you've kind of been turned off by the messiness. These are a great option, definitely. And you don't even need to get the watercolor ones. You can get the regular ones. But I haven't tried them. I don't know if they feel different. Another new supply that I got I think last year or like recently, and I've been wanting to try them out for a long time, are the Faber-Castell Polychromos. I've been using the Prismacolour Premier pencils for years. Basically since I started my YouTube channel, I've been using the Prismacolour Premier because they have a soft core. They're really like buttery. You can lay them on really thick. But sometimes this is a bad thing because you want to get details, but the tip of the pencil wears down so quickly because it's so soft, and they're kind of hard to sharpen because they're so soft. I wanted a nice pencil option that wasn't as soft and that could hold its shape a little bit better, and the Faber-Castell Polychromos are really good at that. They're not as thick as a Prismacolor, but that's sort of the point. They still feel pretty soft, but they're definitely like a drier lead, so it's easier to get fine details, and I really like using them together, having the option for a softer core and like a thicker laydown of color, and then the thinner, more detailed, more controlled color. It's really nice to have both options, and I'm so glad I decided to get some last year. They're definitely a new favorite of mine. Like if I was doing like a full pencil crayon drawing, I'd probably like mostly use the Polychromos just because they're just easier to control, and I really like that about them. Another supply, and this is more of a fun art supply. I wouldn't call it I wouldn't use these for like a final painting or like a final illustration because I don't think they're that light fast and they're not really meant for that. It's the Ohuhu water-based double-ended markers, so it has a brush side and a fine point end. I like to use these in my sketchbooks because they do not bleed through the page unless you go ham and like really saturate the page. I notice with the sketchbook I'm using now, the paper is thinner than I'm used to. If you really oversaturate the page with these, they kind of bleed through, but alcohol-based markers are the alternative and they will bleed through most paper. a lot more easily than water-based. So that's why I like to use water-based markers in my sketchbook. Sure, they don't blend as well, but I'm not really using them for that. I'm using them to add little accents, to like color in backgrounds, just to add splashes of color very easily. I'm not using them to like render and do that sort of thing. They're sort of like part of my mixed media arsenal in my sketchbook. They're a lot of fun and affordable if you want a lot of color options for sketching. I would recommend them. My go-to watercolors are the Shinhan PWC watercolors. And to be fair, I haven't tried tons of different watercolor brands, but these ones are easy to get where I live. They are affordable, a lot of paint comes with them, and they're just really, really nice quality and they're nice to work with. I would highly recommend checking them out if you've been trying to find a watercolor that works for you. I used to use the Winsor & Newton Cotman watercolors because I saw a lot of people use them, but then I saw some people didn't like them and I didn't really like them that much either because it's really hard to get the paint off the palette once it's dried. Like I find you have to kind of work for it. With the Shinhan ones, it's not like that. I also like to use the Schmincke Horadam. I'm probably butchering the pronunciation, but that's another type of watercolor that I find to be extremely pigmented, very transparent, depending on the color you get. They're way more expensive, but they last a long time, and these ones, they blend into each other more, and the Shinhan ones don't blend into each other as much, so I like to use them for different things. Basically, the Shinhan ones I find to be more opaque. They're like a different feeling of painting with them, and I find them a little bit easier to control. And the other ones are very transparent. They just feel like really like luxurious when you use them, and they're so pigmented and so bright and so nice. Much more expensive and a lot less paint, but I feel like they might go a longer way. So I like both of these. It depends on my mood and what sort of feel I want the paint to have while I'm using it. So those are my two recommendations. Now my favorite gouache is the Holbein Artist Gouache. I don't like using acrylic gouache. I've given it a try. I know tons of people use it. I just really like the ability to rework the paint on my palette. It makes me paint a little bit more free. It makes me be able to be a little bit more casual when I'm painting and not have to worry about cleaning my brush and not letting the paint sit on it because acrylic gouache dries. Like when it dries, it's dry. But regular gouache, you can always add water and it starts to work up again. So I love using the Holbein Artist Gouache. And I bought like a giant tube of white gouache on Amazon. I think usually people, I kind of do this the opposite where my white gouache is cheaper than my colors. I think I've seen people recommend getting a big tube of fancy white paint. And then for your actual colors, they can be a little bit on the cheaper side. I do things reverse for some reason. I don't know if that's a good idea. I think the one I use is totally fine, but I don't know, that's something weird that I have noticed that I saw like other people recommend. Now for a quick break to thank this video's sponsor, which is Squarespace. I have used Squarespace to host my website for the last couple of years, and I just really like how clean it looks, how easy it is to swap out all of my portfolio images because I'm always making new artwork, and if I want to go and rearrange things or add new pieces, it's very easy to do that with their portfolios and galleries feature. You can just upload all your images and drag them around, change the order anytime you want, and their automatic image scaling takes care of displaying them all beside each other. If you're just starting out, I'd recommend going to their template section, that's what I did, and choosing one that speaks to you, and then you can change a lot of things about it, customize it, and make it fit your brand. If you'd like to check it out, go to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/JelArts and you can get 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain using code JelArts. Anyways, I recommended this a lot, and I actually discovered this supply in art school when one of my classmates/friends was using it, and it is the Mars Technico lead holder. And basically this is like a really thick mechanical pencil. So if you don't like mechanical pencils because they're usually really thin, this one holds thick lead, and I like to put 2B lead in it. That's my favorite like softness to sketch with. I find HB a little bit too hard. I prefer a softer lead. So the Mars Technico lead holder, and get yourself your favorite lead. And also the back of it has a little sharpener, which is nice. I also, of course, like to use regular mechanical pencils, and I replace them with 2B lead. I like the is it 0.5 or 0.75? Like what is the standard size? I'm not exactly sure, but I like the like normal size, the like standard, most common one. And also the Mars Plastic Extendable Eraser, or basically any mechanical eraser I would recommend. It's nice to have a thin eraser available because you can't always use the back of your pencil. It will eventually run out, and not all pencils have erasers, and some erasers are super old and you try to use them and it leaves pink streaks on the paper. So I would recommend getting a mechanical eraser, just like a mechanical pencil. Those two I find really convenient for just like picking up and drawing. You don't have to sharpen stuff. I just really like them. Now for watercolor paper, my favorite ones are the Meeden 100% cotton watercolor paper or the Fluid 100 cold press paper. I think for the Meeden paper, I've only tried hot press, but I want to try the cold press paper. Those are all the papers that I have found accessible to me. Like, and by accessible, I mean I can actually buy them easily, and I like them a lot. I'd recommend getting cotton paper. It's like the nicest quality, and make sure that it's like acid free. A new favorite sketchbook brand of mine is the Stillman & Birn Beta Sketchbook. It's a new favorite of last year that I will definitely go back to once I am in need of a new sketchbook. You guys recommended that one to me, and I really liked it, and I'm so grateful to have all your recommendations when I'm looking for stuff to use. So I definitely recommend checking out their sketchbook line. They're pretty affordable and good quality, like good quality binding, lays flat, all that good stuff. Lots of different sizes. They have a whole system of like, how thick do you want the paper, what tone of the paper, like all this stuff. Another sketchbook that I love is the Handbook Journal Co. watercolor sketchbooks. I have one waiting for me when I'm done my current Royal Talon sketchbook, but I just really love watercolor sketchbooks. They're so durable. You can use any media you want on the page. I like when they have a bit of texture, and the Handbook Journal Co. is easy for me to find, and honestly, it's a little pricey. The Stillman & Birn one kind of serves the same purpose, but it's not as pricey. But this one is just really nice and I really like it. Another thing I get so many questions on is about the brush pens that I use, the black brush pens that I use to outline stuff. They are Tombow brand brush pens. I'll put them on the screen. They come in a pack of a soft one and a hard one. They're waterproof and I love them. Very convenient. Very fun to use. The ink lasts a long time. Well, that's subjective. It really depends how much you draw. But I don't find they dry out. Like if you haven't used them in a long time, they're really good quality basically. My favorite thing to sketch with if I'm going to be sketching in color is the Prismacolour Terracotta col-erase. It has been my go-to sketching pencil for final illustrations for so long, and it still is. And I just find this warm brown color works really well with my art and the kinds of colors I tend to work with. I much prefer sketching in color than sketching with graphite because the gray of the graphite can muddy your colors. But the terracotta color kind of blends in. It can really like enhance your art if you use a lot of warm colors. And it says col-erase. It kind of erases. It erases a little bit better than regular colored pencils, but worse than graphite. So it kind of erases. Another supply that I have really liked using are my handmade watercolor palettes. That sounds so fancy, but I made them in a friend's pottery studio. We've had a couple little pottery days where a bunch of us go and make a lot of pottery and then we get them back. And so far I've made 2 palettes. One of them I use for watercolor. I think I actually use it in this video. And the other one I use for gouache. It just feels kind of fancy to use something you made yourself and something that's like ceramic. Another go-to palette that I really like to use is my Meeden watercolor palette. It's like a metal palette that has removable pans. I think having removable watercolor pans is so convenient because you can swap out the colors so easily instead of just having like a flat palette with like all your colors on it. I say as I am using one of those in this video, but this type of palette is for those who like to be very organized. And sometimes I like to use it. It's nice to just add colors, swap them out, move them around. I even put them in the middle section, which I don't know if that's intended, but I do. And you can remove the entire middle part, wash the whole palette, and then put the colors back in. Because it's kind of hard to wash a palette that has paint on it. But you can take the paint out, wash it, put it back in. It's great. They have so many different sizes. I think there's other brands that make a similar type of palette. This is just the one I have. Mine came with 12 full pans, but I replaced them with 24 half pans so I can have more colors. I really don't need the full pan. It's like kind of too big. The half pan is a good size because you can get way more colors in there. The exact one I have is not available anymore, but there's a lot of similar ones. And mine is in desperate need of a cleaning and a refresh, but I don't know when that's gonna happen. So those are all my favorite go-to art supplies that I've been using recently. If any of these are the same as ones that you use, let me know. I'm sure a lot of them are. And let me know some of your favorite art supplies as well. I always discover new supplies when I go online and like read your comments and like watch other people's videos. So who knows, maybe I'll discover a new favorite this year or a new favorite from the comment section. That'd be pretty cool. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you want to grab the package on Patreon, make sure to check out my Patreon for the month, and I will see you in my next video.